the Forest and Forest Health Subcommittee. So it's always good to be back in this room and with your terrific staff. I'd like to welcome a couple of constituents who are here today. The Mayor of Prineville, Mayor Betty Ropey, thank you for your leadership on this issue as Mayor and for your dedication. I'll tell you, Mr. Chairman, this community has really worked hard for a number of years to try and come to conclusion on this issue so that they can lose their status in Crook County as the highest unemployed county in the state. And we appreciate your dedication and leadership, and that of your City Manager, Steve Forrester, from whom we'll hear later today. Just a terrific team, Mr. Chairman. And Dan Gardner, it's good to see you. We appreciate the work that your organization does in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers and the jobs that could be created as a result of this project. At least 50 of them, constructing a hydro facility on a dam that does not have that today if we're successful. I know Local 280 has been hit hard with the recession, and anything we can do to create jobs for people is I think really, really important. With your help, hopefully Facebook is just the beginning of what can be developed there. And I want to thank the folks from Trout Unlimited and the Bureau of Reclamation for your assistance on this legislation. I'd like you to take a look at a photograph that's supposed to pop up here on the screen. This shows you the Bowman Dam from yeah, it's a night photo. That's part. There we go. Now, this is the dam, 240 foot high, and the wild and scenic boundary, when it was created by Congress, was through a basic typo error by the agencies, dropped the scenic boundary line right down that yellow line. Now, the only thing wild or scenic about that dam is as you tumble down one side or the other looking at it. It gets pretty wild and I suppose scenic from certain perspectives. We want to move that wild and scenic boundary line downriver about 1/4 of a mile. And if we do that, which this legislation accomplishes, it puts it where it really belongs, and then it allows for development of clean, renewable hydropower right on the face of that dam where it does not now exist. And there are private entities that would come in and do that. They would create probably 50 construction jobs for 2 years and produce long-term hydropower and put money on the local tax rolls as a result of having this private investment. And so that's part of what this would do. It would fix this error that dates back some 22 years. And we can solve that here. Now, as I mentioned, Crook County has unemployment the highest in the state, 15 to 20% range. It's been over the last couple of years. So you want to do a no-cost, job-creating, clean energy piece of legislation, this is it. And we do more than that. I want to draw your attention to this newspaper. My neighbor moved. She used to roll up newspapers and burn them in her fireplace. And when she moved, she had a box of them she left with us because we go camping. And we were up camping with my wife and I over Memorial Day weekend, and I was unrolling them and putting them in the campfire. This is from October 11th of 1977. And it says, Reservoir Use Talks Scheduled. Public meetings have been scheduled in Portland and Prineville to discuss allocation of uncommitted space in Prineville Reservoir for the storage of water for irrigation or other uses. The concluding paragraph says the meetings will be the last opportunity for public comment before recommendations are submitted to the U.S. Reclamation Commissioner for a decision. This was 1977. We're here today because it's time to make the decision. It's time to properly allocate 5,000 acre-feet that will go down the river that then allows the city, if the state makes its decisions on some water issues, to be able to pump water out of a well and use it to take care of needs of water in the community and make sure that for economic development purposes there's water available. There are other entities besides Facebook that have contacted this community and said, we are real interested in locating there. It's a bit like Lowe's following Home Depot. There are at least 2 and maybe 3 companies, that one of which has reserved land. Their decision in large measure is contingent upon whether or not there's adequate water available. There's 80,000 feet of unallocated water in this reservoir. We're talking about 5,100 acre-feet that would go down the river and be committed for fish and other uses, and it triggers a whole bunch of other things that would be positive for the river, positive for the community, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. And by acting today, government will be acting in record time on that 1977 promise.
That's all we ask, Mr. Chairman.
Congressman Smith.
Thank you.
For hydroelectric power under the '05 EPAC Act that we passed here in the Congress, as I'm sure you know. There are two private companies, PGE and Symbiotics, have already submitted applications to FERC to build hydropower on this dam. That can't proceed unless we move the wild and scenic boundary line. And I don't think there's a disagreement here. It's just time to act. There have been requests to do this of the agencies since '91. And you know, so finally we move forward to do this, and then there are other things that come up. This bill does not give water to Prineville. Can we make that clear? Anybody disagree with that? It doesn't give it to the Prineville. It sends it downstream for fish and wildlife purposes, which are non-reimbursable costs. And then the state of Oregon could eventually determine this water to be mitigation water, but Oregon has yet to make that determination, right? I mean, there's no disagreement with that. Why doesn't the administration define what the cost to the taxpayer is? Our rough estimate is it's less than $30,000. And I guess I sit here and think, for God's sakes, we got a county with enormous unemployment. We got a country that's off the rails economically. You spend close to $1 trillion on a stimulus to create jobs, and we're getting thrown up in our face $25,000, $30,000 here that frankly is based on speculation of future event anyway. And it's time to act. I drag out again this newspaper article from 1977. For gosh sakes, the first meeting I had on this a couple of years ago, they told me Mark Hatfield was going to solve this. He hasn't been in the Senate for 14 years, bless his heart. And it is just time to act if we're going to ever deal with these issues. And I know, and I appreciate Trout Unlimited and others who have been involved in this. I think you would have to admit part of the objection here is what the bill doesn't have in it. If we put the study in it, which we hope, by the way, that the administration can do on its own, because usually you can find money to do things you really want to do, if you put that in here, it likely takes this off the rails in our ability to move forward, because we're budget constricted here. So that's part of why that's not here. And there are groups who want more water dedicated to fish, but even among those groups, they can't decide how much that water should be, which is part of why there's this call for this study. If we do the study, money's an issue then. I mean, I've authorized studies here over the past, and then you wait a couple of years to get the money to fund them, and then you do the study for a couple of years. Meanwhile, we've got companies ready to locate in this area and create real jobs right away. So it's not that you can't continue to do these studies. There's still a lot of water unallocated behind this reservoir. But we can solve these problems and then deal with the Mackay Creek issue as well, which I thought there was pretty good support. I know the Warm Springs, Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs have been very supportive of trying to get this moved. So we resolved some of these boundary issues, some of these water issues. And I actually think this is a very positive bill for fish and the environment, for economy and jobs, and production of alternative hydro green power. I've got another picture. We don't have it to put up here, but again, just to make the case, and I don't think anybody's really objecting to moving the line, but this is the spillway looking down. We're just talking about going down to where the river actually gets away from the concrete and put the line there. And so I guess, Mr. Quint, my numbers off here?
You brought up several points. Let me just...
Oh, just a couple.
Yeah. Let me try to address some, you know, as mentioned in...
And I appreciate the work you all have done on this. You've been most helpful. But
and we'll continue to work, and I think we just have a couple minor points to work our way through to get this there. What we're suggesting in our testimony is we feel, a better way to get the water to Prineville by just authorizing that as a purpose for the project, and then we can work through our normal processes to contract with the city to have this water supply. We feel like that's a better process. So we can get there. As far as the dollars are concerned, we estimate, similar to you, that it would be less than $50,000 of cost to do this. Which in most accounting circles around this building is de minimis and not even acknowledged, although I still think $50,000 is a lot of money. But absolutely, but we can just forego that whole argument by our suggested way. So,
or just forego that whole argument. Or we could probably find that $50,000 in the office of the Chief of Staff of the Bureau of Rec. You know, that would work too. I mean, we do have oh no, I wouldn't do that. But
I do want to recognize I started with the Bureau of Reclamation in 1978, so that happened before my time.
Yeah. Well, let me just suggest it hasn't been solved during your time. So we have the opportunity here. And Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. We've got a markup going on in Energy and Commerce I must get to now. But I thank all the witnesses, and I thank your work on it. You understand my frustration. I think it's time to move, and I think we can do it in a thoughtful way, and we appreciate your work on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tipton.